Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Blackhawks Banter presented by the hockeywriters.com. And unlike every team in the NHL, we actually have a full crew. We have our roster back intact. My name is Greg Boyce, and I'm your host, and I am joined by my fellow Blackhawk writers over at the Hockey Writers, Gail Kauchuk, Brooke Laforno, and welcoming back Sean Filippelli. How is everybody doing today? Staying healthy?
Much better.
Yes.
Awesome. Good to hear. Glad to have everybody back and playing with a full roster.
Like bands back together.
Yes, we've got a full roster like nobody in the NHL or AHL has right now. So we have the advantage. This is episode 58 of Blackhawks Banter. And I know a lot of people look forward to this. This is the PA Parento episode of Blackhawks Banter, going in the Wayback Machine. Yes, Mackenzie Entwistle was the obvious choice, but Parento was the first player to wear 58 in Blackhawks history for the 5 games he played here in 2007. His first 5 NHL games. Of course, he had a pretty long career, played for a bunch of teams. So it's the PA Parento / Twisty episode of Blackhawks Banter. We'll go that way because I want to say Twisty. So we're going to kick off our show. This is usually our first segments where we kind of take a look back at the week that was and maybe talk about some things in the week ahead. And there's not a whole lot of hockey to talk about. The Blackhawks did not play at all last week, as nobody in the NHL did, with they trying to get their hands on this COVID issue. The brief pause didn't look like it did too much help. More on that as we go along, but we still can look back at some things and look forward to some things. And Sean, you wanted to lead us off and talk about the goalie situation. And this is kind of a perfect topic. You wanted to talk about setting up Kevin Lankinen for success. And then like literally a few minutes after you submitted that, we found out that Marc-Andre Fleury was added to COVID protocol. So if the Blackhawks play this week, it's going to be Lankinen's with the starting job. So what did you want to talk about when it comes to the young Finnish goalie?
Yeah, you certainly don't want Lankinen to be getting his chances because Fleury's out of the lineup. But just reflecting back, obviously with no hockey, with no live hockey going on, for us to reflect on, like you mentioned, it seemed that while these Blackhawks are doing better of late, they're still not, playing up to par where they should be playing, and we all know that. But they've obviously been playing much better than they did to start the season. And collectively and individually, a lot of these players have risen to the occasion. Fleury being one of them. We touched on this a few episodes ago, and I know that I believe it was Gail mentioned that when we talked about how Fleury was doing better, it seemed that perhaps the Blackhawks were even putting him in better situations to succeed, to actually bolster his confidence, which is great because he deserved that. Fleury deserves an opportunity to win, and he deserves to be put in every opportunity to shine. With that said, it seems that an underlying tone here and an underlying narrative, has been that we've kind of overlooked Lankinen, and not that he should get the same spotlight that Fleury has, but the reality is Lankinen was thrown to the wolves last season, and a lot of people are, neglecting to touch on that. He came in to a team with much less expectation than they have this year through 2020-21, and he really rose to that occasion. He played superior. He was up for a Calder consideration for much of the season. His numbers were outstanding, and he came in and game out. He was a workhorse for this team, and he really started to deserve his chances, and he deserved to be their number one. Obviously, Fleury came in. They had a different approach this offseason, so it made sense that he was going to take a step back to number 2. However, when you look at who he's played this season, it's not like the Hawks are doing him any favors. And in my opinion, he just deserves better fate. He deserves a better opportunity to be winning alongside the team as they continue to win more than they have been. When you look at his games played, he's played some of the toughest competition in the league. And I just don't think that's fair at this point. Fleury's playing better. So when Fleury's back in this lineup, let him have the tough competition. Give Lankinen some starts that are going to be a better matchup for him, that the Hawks are going to come out guns a-blazing, so to speak, and that they're going to actually put some points on the board for Lankinen's sake, so he's not getting lit up at the other end, and he can actually gain some confidence. This is their goalie of the future. Fleury might not be here next year. Fleury might not be here the rest of the season if he gets traded at or before the deadline. Give Lankinen a chance to gain his confidence while you have the opportunity to do so.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about a goalie going from playing 3 out of every 4 games to playing 1 out of every 4 games and getting into rhythm. Goaltending is all about getting into rhythm, and Lankinen hasn't been able to do that much this year, being a pure backup. So yeah, definitely hard to argue with that. statement there. Gail, we're going to move on to you. Some of the big news that come out of this past week is the taxi squads are back, while at least through the All-Star break, as the NHL teams are in more of a need for emergency call-ups with the COVID outbreak happening. Hopefully this is just a temporary thing. As someone who covers the AHL and watches a lot of AHL games, I hate the taxi squads, but I get their necessity. Gail, tell us all about the return of the taxi squad.
Well, they have made some adjustments to it that I think address, you said you hate the taxi squad, but they put some stipulations on it that I think are going to make it so it's not going to ruin the AHL. And at the same time, really help out the NHL. So first off, I just have some bullet points. Teams can assign up to 6 players at a time, which I'm pretty sure it was last year. It might have been 7, but they are not required to have anyone if they don't want to. So if they prefer to have people play and stay in the AHL, they can. A player can only stay on the taxi squad for a maximum of 20 days. So hopefully it's not going to, just snowball people's development. For salary cap purposes, taxi squad players will count as if they're still in the AHL. So we don't have to worry about they're not messing with the financials so much. A new rule, roster emergency exception rule. I'm just going to read blatantly here. The RRE allows players with cap hits of less than 1 million to be recalled as replacements for the NHL players who contract COVID without counting against the cap. So teams previously had to play 1 game shorthanded before they were eligible for this emergency recall. So that I think just going to make it so that teams can play more competitively. They're not going to be forced to play shorthanded. And so it's going to put a better product out there on the ice. We're very fortunate so far with the Blackhawks in that they only had Calvin DeHaan before the break on COVID, and now he's back. And as we just talked about, Marc-Andre Fleury is now on. And the only person they have is Brett Connolly on the taxi squad. But let's face it, this could come into play later on in the season here as we go. And it obviously is affecting other teams as well. So I think it's much needed. And hopefully it'll help things out as we go here and as we deal with the situation.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as extreme as it was last year, based on especially for the teams who have their AHL team in the same state or very close by, like the Blackhawks do. You may only see them take a guy or two with them on a road trip because it's much easier to have them with them where they're playing at home. You can get a guy from Rockford in an hour and a half. And plus, I think these teams are going to want to keep a lot of their guys in the AHL, not only to play, but I think they're quote unquote safer there because the overwhelming majority, especially in the Eastern Conference, these teams rarely go to airports. It's a lot of bus travel. The Ice Hogs and the Wolves, the only time they get on a plane is when they go to Manitoba or when they go to Texas, and they only do that twice a year. So when they're playing Grand Rapids and Milwaukee and Iowa, it's all bus travel. So it's a lot. You can control that a lot better than walking through airports. Yeah, it's a lot safer than walking through airports than getting on a charter bus at your arena and getting off the charter bus at another arena. So I don't think the taxi squads will be as crazy as it was last year, which is good, as you mentioned, for players' development, the overall product in the AHL, but it's definitely needed. And then hopefully by the All-Star break, we've got some better news on the COVID front and they can go back to the way it was. Quote unquote normal, but there's no such thing as normal these last 2 years, as we know. Brooke, you wanted to your topic for this kind of piggybacks off of that. And as Gail mentioned, right now, the only guy on the taxi squad for the Blackhawks is Brett Connolly. And you wanted to talk about him. What's up with Brett Connolly?
I don't know what's up with Brett Connolly, which is why I wanted to talk about him. I think we were kind of all confused about what exactly Connolly's role is on this team. And now I feel like the taxi squad is making it a little bit more complicated. He was called up, then he got suspended for his hit on Tanner Kero, which was completely justified. I don't even know what his role is on this team, but I kind of think it's counterproductive. If he's on the taxi squad, I don't really know if that's a difference maker for this team. And we talk about this a lot too, about depth. The team is going to need depth, especially if they get a COVID outbreak on this team. And I don't know if Connolly is just for that. And you know what, I know they're going to have other players on this team in the taxi squad, but at this point, It's just not kind of sitting well with me. But like Gail said, they can only be there for 20 days. And then after that, it's still going to be hazy. It seems like Derek King likes him and thinks he can contribute. But at this point, I feel like it just makes his role just a little bit more murky. I don't think he has really a role or a place on this team. It's just like more, he just fills up a spot. But to me, I don't really like it for some reason. I think he's probably better off in Rockford, where he had a good role and he was a good influence. But on the Blackhawks, I just don't think it's going to go anywhere.
True.
Yeah, I think his call up in the first place was kind of a temporary thing, kind of a reward for playing well and being the good trooper in Rockford, as they were dealing with some guys being out. I wonder, and I don't know, but I wonder if being on the taxi squad and counts towards his suspension, to where, hey, keep you on the taxi squad, miss the next 3 games on the taxi squad, but that counts as your suspension because technically you're on the NHL roster. So maybe there's some shenanigans going on there to get rid of that suspension. But if you need a guy in the last second, you go out to a road trip and a guy get test positive in the morning, you can throw a guy like Conley. He's got over 500 games of NHL experience. You do a lot worse than sticking him out there. If you're going to put somebody out there last minute to play 8 or 9 minutes on the fourth line, that's the guy to do it. So
but they have to wait 4 games. They can't just call him.
Yeah, because they haven't even played since that game, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's even served 1 game yet.
So we'll see. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe who knows? I don't know how those things work. All I know is guys can get suspended in the AHL and get called up to the NHL and play in the NHL right away. That's happened a couple times this year. So, all right. Well, we did have a little bit of hockey. We had no AHL hockey today, but we did have the World Junior Championship get underway yesterday, Sunday, because this is coming out Tuesday. So Sunday, Boxing Day, Edmonton and Red Deer kicked off with 4 games, and 3 of the 4 Blackhawks prospects were in action for Team USA, and they all made us proud as Blackhawks fans. Drew Komesko, the goalie, 2nd-round draft pick, he had a big game as the United States beat Slovakia 3-2 in their opening match of group play. He stopped 23 of 25 shots and was named the player of the game for the United States. He came up with some big saves early and some big saves late. And then Landon Slagert, the forward from Notre Dame, he had the game-winning goal in that game. It put the United States up 3-0 at the time, but Slovakia fought back with 2 third-period goals, so that turned out to be the game winner. And Wyatt Kaiser, the 3rd prospect, he had the primary assist on the game-winning goal. So the Blackhawk prospects doing well. You can catch them later this evening, Tuesday night. They'll get back in action, Team USA against Switzerland. Not sure if Komesso will start that game. They may give him a break against the lesser opponent. The 4th prospect is defenseman Michael Kruto with the Czech Republic. I already made the mistake. Czechia, not the Czech Republic. They don't want to be called Czech Republic anymore. Czechia. They gave Canada a little bit of a scare in their game. They were up 3-1 in the first period, and then Owen Power said enough of this nonsense, and he took over the game. Canada won 6-3. Kruto did not play, and he will not play in their second game. He is serving a 2-game suspension by the IIHF for a boarding incident against Canada in last year's quarterfinal. So he'll miss their first 2 games. He'll miss, by the time this series, he had missed Monday's game against Germany. He's eligible to return to their lineup Wednesday versus Finland. So there's an update at the World Juniors on how the Blackhawk prospects are doing. We'll touch on the World Juniors before the end of the show.
These are exciting prospects. I'm really excited actually for their future, because these are actually really solid prospects.
Yeah, I've been interested. I want to see Komesso because I haven't been sold on him yet as a goalie of the future. But what I saw Sunday night was definitely encouraging. So Team USA will need him to come up with some big saves, because they don't have the Trevor Zegerases of the world this year, but they still got a pretty solid team. They'll be fun to watch for sure. More on USA and the World Juniors in our famous shootout round, so stick around. We will move on to our second topic, which we like to dedicate to what we talked about in our Blackhawks Banter preview post that you can check out on the hockeywriters.com. And it was Brooke's turn to lead the preview post, and she wanted to do some fun end of the year awards since there were no games to really talk about. So we are going to give out some personal awards. Not all of them are exactly awards, but we're going to give some recognition, good and bad, here for the calendar year 2021. And Gail, we're going to start with you and who you picked as the most surprising Blackhawk of 2021.
Okay, so my most surprising Blackhawk is Brandon Hagel. We all knew headed into this season that he was a good, solid member of the Blackhawks from his performance last year. Great utility player, can be used throughout the lineup, and he has got that combination of energy and grit that few players can bring to the table. So, but I just don't think that any of us really expected him to make the kind of impact that he's had so far, which has been really great. Coach Jeremy Colleton, when he was around, mostly utilized Hagel on the third line. And let's face it, I think that's kind of where we all saw him being plugged in. But when Derek King took over, he has placed Hagel with on the second line with Jonathan Toews and Dominic Kubalik. He's pretty much stuck with Toews ever since, and some other rotating partners there on that line. He even went along for the ride when they went up to the first line for 6 games and played with Patrick Kane. And Hagel has not looked out of place in the top 6 here. We all thought that maybe he would, and he just hasn't. He's accumulated 5 goals, 6 assists in the top line deployment. Heck, he had 2 goals and 2 assists in 12 games on, the third line. So you really can't complain about him anywhere in the lineup. His 8 goals is second overall. His 8 goals is second on the team. His 8 assists is tied for 4th on the team. 16 points, also 4th on the team. And that's pretty impressive when you consider like the expect names like Toews and Kubalik and even Kirby Dach to be kind of ahead of him in these categories. Now, right, who knows what that says for them, but it says good things for Hagel. Scott Powers at The Athletic actually recently wrote a piece about Hagel, talking about how his analytics point to him being one of the top NHL players right now. And of course, that's not like one specific thing that stands out, but the combination of all his parts, he's just really putting it all together right now. And that's really awesome because, he's in the first year of a 3-year contract for just 1.5 million cap hit. So good on Hagel and good for the Blackhawks. His strengths are scoring above projections, which hopefully he can keep up. Really good zone entries, which Blackhawks are weak on and need more help there. And feeding his teammates in the slot. So he's just, I'm not surprised that Hagel's doing well, but I'm surprised that he's doing as well as he is, and hope he can keep it up.
For sure. He's been a very pleasant surprise ever since coming within the organization. Even during his time in Rockford, he kind of came out of nowhere and was one of their best players. So solid pick there. We're going to move from the forward core and head to the blue line. Brooke, you put yourself in charge of picking the best defenseman on this Hawks team for 2021. And who is your pick?
This was actually kind of hard because the defense as a whole is actually very much improved. And there's actually a lot of different ways you could go about that. But I picked Seth Jones. Not going to lie, I was very skeptical about him because he did start off not very good at all. And it was like, oh boy, here we go. But lately, he's actually been very good. He's producing points. His 23 points is tied with DeBrincat for second on the team. He also ranks top 10 in the league. In time on ice, he's 5th, 9th in points, and 10th in shots. So he's doing he's doing what the Blackhawks, I think, expect of him. Granted, I understand he is a -6 because he's on the ice for most of the goals and goals against. And he might not be still worth the contract that he was given, but he's been playing well. And I want to give credit where credit is due. I haven't had much to complain about him lately. I understand he's not perfect, but right now I think he's a big reason why the defense has turned around. So you know what, good for him. And I hope he carries that into the new year because the Blackhawks are going to need that and more from him going forward.
For sure. It's been definitely encouraging to see how much he's improved after a rough start. And was brought in to be a number 1 defenseman. That's exactly what he's doing. So good stuff from Seth Jones. Sean, you were assigned team MVP. We've had a couple candidates for sure, but who did you end up going with?
I mean, you hit it on the head, right? There's definitely a couple of candidates if people want to make a debate of it, but I honestly think that it's a slam dunk to give this to Alex DeBrincat. We've expected a lot out of DeBrincat in recent seasons, and he certainly has not disappointed. He had a rough sophomore campaign, but everyone pretty much knew that he was itching to come back and bounce back, and he superseded what any of us would have expected he could have done in that bounce back campaign last season. So from then till now, all he continues to do is elevate in every aspect of the game. He's scoring more, he's producing more, he's getting more creative. You're seeing more confidence out of him. He's really just proving to be a very impactful player. And when you look at any of the success the Hawks are having, it seems to stem from DeBrincat's influence. Now, if you just want to look at a stat sheet, it's easy to call Kane the MVP year after year. He continues to lead this team in points. I get that. This season as well, Kane is leading the team in points and less games played than DeBrincat at the moment. However, let's call a spade a spade. DeBrincat's there to score goals, and that's what he's doing. You need to score goals to win games. DeBrincat has more than double the amount of goals currently than Kane does. With his 17, he's also a top 10 in the NHL at the moment. And when you look back on the calendar year of 2021, I believe he's actually in fourth in the entire league in mixed company that includes Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and now Alexander Ovechkin. Pretty good company to keep. So while Kane continues to produce and get the points that he should be, I mean, let's call it what it is. He's a superstar in the league, and he should continue to earn his paycheck as he is. He's producing. Kane's getting the points, but DeBrincat's actually making the impact, and I don't think that should be that should go unnoticed. So although Kane's getting the markers and he's getting the assists, DeBrincat's really the one that's taking his team on his back, and the torch is being passed. We're watching it firsthand, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that.
Yeah.
Definitely hard to argue with that. It is kind of funny how, 3 years ago, people were saying, well, Alex DeBrincat's only getting all those points because he's playing with Patrick Kane. And now you could flip that argument around and say, well, Patrick Kane's only getting all these points because he's playing with Alex DeBrincat. So it's funny how things can do a complete 180 over time, but it's a good thing. Who cares who's benefiting from who? The team is benefiting from the both of them playing together, and that's all that matters. Brooke, you asked me to come up with the most disappointing player. I think you just wanted me to go off on another one of my rants.
Yes, I did. I did. I kept the viewers in mind here. That's what I'm here for.
We knew we could count on you.
I don't want to disappoint. So my pick for the most disappointing Blackhawk, it was rather easy, even though there are quite a few underachieving players, but this isn't underachiever. It's disappointing. And it's hard not to be disappointed with Kirby Dach right now. Not only for what he's done this year, but as a whole, he's been a disappointment. He has 5 goals and 13 points, which is 52 shots on goal in 30 games this year. His Corsi for percentage is 48.9, which isn't terrible, but considering he starts 57% of his shifts in the offensive zone, you probably wanted a little better than that. He continues to struggle at the faceoff dot. That's nothing new. He's won just 32.7% of his draws, and it's actually gone up to where it was like a couple of weeks ago, which it was pretty low before. These numbers just aren't good enough for a guy that was drafted 3rd overall and was brought in here to be the heir apparent to Jonathan Toews and be the next elite center on this team. Sure, he's still just 20 years old and has just 112 games of NHL experience, but this was supposed to be the season that he took that jump towards being an elite player, the player he was drafted to be, and it just isn't there. We've seen flashes of his potential, but that's all they've been, flashes. He needs to have a consistent, significant impact on each and every game. It's not there, and I don't know if it's ever going to come, to be honest with you at this point. He has 15 goals and 31 points in those 112 games. And when you look at other guys that got picked in that same spot, 3rd overall, it just doesn't compare very well. Look at Tim Stützle of the Ottawa Senators, who was taken 3rd overall a year after Dach. He's played in 81 games for the Ottawa Senators, essentially 1 full season. He has 17 goals and 44 points, both more than Dach. Pierre-Luc Dubois, who was picked 3rd overall by the Blue Jackets in 2016, in his first 112 games, he had 33 goals and 74 points. Dylan Strome, Dach's teammate now, he was picked 3rd overall in 2015 behind McDavid and Eichel in that famous draft. In his first 112 games, He had 25 goals and 68 points and is still considered a major disappointment, if not a bust, for third overall. And those numbers are twice as good as what we've seen from Kirby Dach. So I don't think it's fair that we label him a bust just yet, but if things don't start trending and this is all we see for the rest of the season, then that label will be justified if it starts getting used. He's not been terrible, but he's just not been the guy that they need him to be. He was supposed to be one of the cornerstones of this future. The next Stanley Cup window was going to be him centering that top line. Yes, he's 20. There's still plenty of time for him to figure it out, but it's got to start happening consistently and quickly, or else who knows what we're going to see. So Kirby Dach, you've been disappointing, buddy, but let's not have the discussion at the end of the year. When we do our end of the season awards, let's call him hopefully we're talking about a great comeback by Kirby Dach. But I wouldn't hold my breath. So that is our.
You lived up to the hype, Greg. You did it.
I appreciate that. You guys keep serving me the softballs. I'll keep knocking them out of the park. We'll take a quick little pause here. Remind everybody as we hit the midway point of our twisty episode of Blackhawks Banter. Don't forget, if you're watching along on the YouTube channel, thank you, but please hit that subscribe button to the Hockey Writers channel so you don't miss any of our great shows across the board. We've got so many great individual team shows. We've got a Red Wings show, Oilers, Maple Leafs, Sabres, Coyotes. We got a ton of it. And plus we have some great general shows, NHL rumors shows, and all kinds of great stuff. So when you're done watching Blackhawks Banter every week, click around and find some other great stuff. Stay informed. Also, if you want to stay informed, great way to do it is sign up for our Morning Skate newsletter. You can go to morningskate.io, put your email address in the box, and you'll get that in your inbox 5 days a week. You'll get all the latest news, standings, all that great stuff, plus some exclusive features from our great staff of writers that you only get on the Morning Skate. So sign up for that. Also, if you're a Discord user, we have the Hockey Lounge server over there. You can join us and join our writers all across the site and talk hockey there as well. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's a comment on YouTube, reaching out on Discord, or finding us on Twitter and talking to us on Twitter. We're all very active there as well. So we love hearing from you guys and look forward to some more comments and questions. So with that, we'll hit the second half of our show. In our third segment, we kind of like to put aside to talk about players that deserve a shout out, somebody that did something worthy of a note, recognition the past week, but there were no games this week. So I said, hey guys, let's just talk about whatever the heck we want. And we got some great little things to talk about here. And Brooke, we're going to start with you and something I know nothing about, and I'm looking forward to. Tell us about the Line Change clothing line.
Okay, guys, I'm actually laughing because I think we said last year, if we had an episode where there wasn't much going on with the Blackhawks, and we would either do a fashion show or a dance off. So you know what? I'm taking the time to do a fashion show for you guys. So here we go. So if you guys do not know, Line Change is a woman-owned business, and it was started by Angela Price and Julie Petrie, who are the wives of Carey Price and Jeff Petrie on the Montreal Canadiens. What makes this line cool is that for each team that's involved with Line Change is 10% of the proceeds go to the team's foundation. So the proceeds of the Blackhawks gear from the line, 10% of that goes to the Chicago Blackhawks Foundation, which I think is really awesome. And I think especially during this time, during these kind of hard times, people want gifts that can give back. And especially if you're a Blackhawks fan that want to give back in some way, women, this is for you. They have really cute stuff there. They have hats. This hat's from them. They have this really cute baseball tee shirt. They have tank tops, hoodies. It's really an awesome initiative. And if you guys are not aware, the Chicago Blackhawks Foundation aids in so many good things around the city. They invest in the west side of Chicago because it's severely under-resourced. They give initiatives for reading, schooling, mentoring. It's a really great initiative. So, and they also have invested in minority-owned small businesses during the pandemic, which is really awesome. So if you want to support the Blackhawks Foundation, go for it, guys. It's awesome. The quality of the clothes is amazing. And I know that Christmas just passed, unfortunately, but Valentine's Day is coming up. So men, I got a gift idea for your women. I got you guys covered.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely check that out. It just gave me a great idea for a segment for next year. Maybe our first weekend of this, our first episode of December, we'll have a segment based on like, hey, what kind of small business or cool place do you want us to buy gifts from this year? Maybe I'll write that down, and hopefully we're all still here next December and we can all talk about that. That'd be a fun segment. Sean, you wanted to revisit a little World Junior Championship bet that didn't go so well for you last year, so maybe second time around is better luck. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, those who have followed along, thank you for being with us this long. If you remember this bet about a year ago at this point, I was obviously on the wrong side of it, but I don't mind owning that. As you guys saw firsthand, I'm okay with that. I am a man of my word, so to speak. This time around, I want to change it up a little bit, and I want to put it all to you guys. For the viewers or those listening, none of my colleagues here know that I'm bringing this up, so I really do want to see the live reaction and see what you guys think. Last year, what we did was Canada and U.S. met in the final of the World Juniors gold medal men's game, and we essentially put it to a bet, and the losing side was going to have to take a segment out of one of our live shows and talk and give compliments to the winning side, as well as putting the winning side's flag in their Twitter handle for the following week. I obviously lost. I did my part. I took it on the chin, and here we are a year later. We're not at the gold medal game yet. We don't know who's going to be there. Canada and U.S. both did win their first games. I think they both should have won more handily than they did, but nevertheless, they both won. So I want to put it out to you guys that regardless who goes on to what medal, regardless of who wins what, I want to say at this point, this early in the tournament, I'm willing to wager that Canada will just simply do better than the U.S. I don't care where they place. They're going to do better than the U.S. So I want to see if you guys are willing to take that bet. And if you are, I will leave it to you and leave the floor open as to what the wager and what the stakes will entail. They can be exactly the same as last year, or we can get a little more creative. But that's my thoughts. I simply think Canada will do better wherever the U.S. ends up.
I'll take that bet.
Yeah, I will take that bet.
I mean, I don't want to go too much on the wagers because I probably agree with you, but I'll still bet. I got a bet for my home country. Yeah, we can do the same. We can do the same same wager.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe if Canada wins, we'll send you some Chicago hot dogs, and if the U.S. wins, you can send us some like Canadian maple syrup or something fun like that.
Yeah, some beaver tails or something like that. It's a dessert up here.
That works. Yeah, some freeze dried poutine would be awesome.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
When is the tournament over? When does it? Is it before next week? Right?
Yeah, we'll be just getting into the medal round when we'll record next week, so we'll have a little better idea. So it'll be two episodes from now. We won't know we won't know for 2 weeks the final tally, so to speak. So yeah. All right, fun stuff. I love stuff like that, and I love the World Juniors. But I'm going to use this segment to give a shout out to a guy that I don't think gets enough attention for what he does, and that's Joseph Zakcheski. I hope I said that right. Joey Z, as we love to call him, the play-by-play announcer for the Rockford Ice Hogs. He also is their public relations media guy. The guy does a million different things in a day. I've watched the guy personally try and do post-game interviews, send clips out to YouTube, write the game recap, all from the broadcast booth in Rockford in like 20 minutes. It's amazing. The man gets pulled in a million different directions, but always has a smile on his face and is always happy to help you, especially when I'm one of those guys that pulls him in one of those directions half the time. But I just wanted to give out a shout out to Joey Z and the great job he does. This week was supposed to be kind of a crazy historic week for him, but because of everything that's going on, much of it isn't going to happen, if any at all. But he was supposed to do Monday night's game for the Ice Hogs in Iowa. That game got postponed. He was going to then head to Chicago, be in the building for Tuesday's game against Columbus, which isn't happening. Then he was going to fly with the team to Winnipeg and do the radio broadcast for Wednesday's game in Winnipeg, which isn't happening. It would have been his third game of the year. He did those first couple road games at New Jersey and Pittsburgh. And did a great job filling in for Troy Murray. Then he was going to come back Thursday to Milwaukee, do the Ice Hogs game there. Ice Hogs are supposed to play Friday against the Wolves and Saturday at the Wolves. He was going to do 6 games, be at 6 games in 6 days, and do play-by-play for 5 of them. Unfortunately, the first half of that got canceled, and I'm not too optimistic that those Ice Hogs games are going to go, as they've got a whole bunch of guys in COVID protocol, including their head coach and 7 players. So we'll see if that happens. But regardless, if those games happen or not, I just want to give a stick tack to Joey Z. And I hope this is just a sign of things to come. We can touch on this in a topic later this season, but the Blackhawks announcing situation, who knows what's going to happen. I hate the way they're doing it this year. There's no consistency. If you want to make it right, no matter who they pick, except for one person is going to fail trying to replace Pat Foley, because you don't replace a legend, no matter. It's not a slam on whoever gets the gig. You're replacing a legend, a guy that's been here for generations. No one's going to do it. The only guy that I think could do a good job that'll keep Hawks fans happy is if they bring John Weideman from the radio booth, give him the TV gig, because that's a guy that's been here for years. He had those famous calls during the championship runs. Fans know him. He knows the team. Put him on the TV side. Give Joey Z the radio gig full time. That's how you make this work. If I were in charge, that's what happens, but I'm not in charge. I'm here talking to you guys every week. So, but Joey Z, keep up the great work. He's always a pleasure to work with, and I wish nothing but the best for him in his future with this organization. And I saved the last little bit of this topic, our wild card topic, to Gail. You've got a really fun story, and it's got to do with that great looking jersey you got hanging up there. Tell us all about the Holy Goalie.
Okay, so I wanted to take this little lull in time here to tell a little family tale. So a few months ago, the matriarch of our family, my grandma, she passed away, but it's okay because she was 103 years old. She lived a long, happy, prosperous, eventful life. And, obviously now she's up in heaven with my grandpa. So this is all good. But we've had some chances to collect some mementos from her. I have a couple little figurines and bracelets and jewelry and that kind of thing. But this is one of the things that I'm most excited for. And it's my 100 Blackhawks jersey. That's my maiden name there, Jacobs. And this was gifted to my grandma by Bishop Thomas PAPROCK, because he is actually my grandma's godson. I think that makes him my second cousin. And I didn't have much of a chance to catch up with Bishop Tom at the funeral that we just had recently, but it reminded me of my grandma's 100th birthday when he actually gifted me. So Bishop Tom PAPROCK has written this book called The Holy Goalie. And I'm just going to give a little bit of background here because he obviously also loves hockey. And he played roller hockey with his brothers when he lived in Chicago when he was a kid. He learned how to skate on the pond at the seminary school. And then he joined a hockey league later in life called the Masters Hockey League, the Lawyers Hockey Team. And of course, that's where they dubbed him the Holy Goalie because he played goalie. So this league and membership in an organization called the Catholic Athletes for Christ. And he also got his MBA at the University of Notre Dame. So that could be part of the connection as well. But he hobnobs with some of the Blackhawks brass and he attends the Blackhawks games often. So he was actually at a game, and we think it was Jay Blanc that he mentioned this to, and I'm so sorry, Bishop Tom, if that's incorrect. But he gives an endorsement, actually, Jay Blanc, of this book. So that's kind of what we're thinking is the connection there. But he was saying, oh, my grandma, she's going to turn 100 in a few days. So next thing you know, a couple of days later, this is what they received. So I am just honored to actually have this 100 jersey from of course, she thought it was the cutest thing ever. We got a picture of her with it and everything. But it just goes to show you that hockey just spreads so far and wide and so many good things happen with it. And that's just my little family story of who, a bishop who actually loves hockey and wrote a book about it, and my grandma and my 100 jersey.
That's great. That's an awesome story. I love stuff like that. That's kind of, what it's all about. You make your connections within your family and your loved ones, and you have memories. I have memories with my dad and my most cherished piece of hockey memorabilia isn't an autograph or anything like that. It's the ticket stub to the last hockey game my dad and I were able to go to. That's priceless to me. It's more important than anything else I have. So I get it. That's kind of what it's all about and what makes the sport so special. It's the memories you make and the relationships you make through the game. Well, we're going to end it with, we're going to end this episode of Blackhawks Banter with our normal segment. We end with the shootout round, where we're just going to do some quick fire, rapid pace answer questions to end the show. Usually the first question I ask, how many points are the Blackhawks going to get this week? But now we're just going to ask, how many freaking games is this team going to play this week? They're supposed to play 4. As I mentioned, Tuesday night's game against Columbus and Wednesday's at Winnipeg postponed. As of now, we're recording this Monday evening. Saturday's game at Nashville, Sunday's game at home against Calgary are still on the schedule, but that may change. How many games are the Blackhawks going to play this week? That's question number 1. Sean?
0, unfortunately.
Gail, are you a little more optimistic?
Yeah, I think it's going to be okay for the weekend. I think they'll be able to play it in Nashville and Calgary 2 games.
Brooke, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Saturday's game is a go, so I'll say 1.
Okay, I'm going to go with Sean and be pessimistic and say 0. I don't know. Team's traveling right now. It doesn't seem like a good idea. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to depend on what the Blackhawks situation is. Calgary seems to have gotten over their outbreak, and Nashville had an outbreak, and they seem to be getting better too. So we'll see. This is a fluid situation. It changes second by second. Speaking of COVID and COVID protocol, as we talked earlier, Marc-Andre Fleury is the only Blackhawk in COVID protocol at time of recording. So that means Colin DeLia was recalled by from the Ice Hawks. He's played really well there of late now that he's playing regularly again. How many starts would you give Colin DeLia? Okay, let's just go with the 2 games that are on schedule right now for going forward. Gail, what would you give Colin DeLia?
Yeah, probably with those 2 games, just 1. But it depends on how long Fleury's out. Maybe he'll get more going into the next week.
Brooke, what do you think for DeLia?
Yeah, I hope at least 1 because he's always been a solid backup for the Blackhawks.
Sean?
Yeah, I hope Fleury's back, obviously, as soon as possible, and he's okay. For the weekend, you got to give DeLia at least one of the 2 if they play. I would go with a pace of 1 out of every 3 games, depending on how long Fleury's out.
Yeah, I would definitely think if the Hawks play those back-to-backs, you got to give DeLia one of those games, probably the second game against Calgary. And then Lankinen gets the Predators. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, a fluid situation, as we said. Speaking of fluid situations, do you guys think the NHL should go ahead with its All-Star weekend coming up in February, which is going to be in Las Vegas? Lots of people flying around in Las Vegas in casinos. I don't know if that's a good idea. Brooke, do you think the All-Star weekend should still happen?
No. And I'm saying this because the NHL was saying they're already having issues with trying to reschedule all the postponed games. So I think maybe All-Star weekend should be kind of used to make up some games.
Sean, what do you think?
I absolutely don't think it should, but I have a weird feeling that it will.
Yeah. Gail, what do you think of the All-Star weekend?
Yeah, I don't care much for the All-Star weekend anyway. Yeah. Let them play. Don't do it.
Yeah, I agree. There's no really need for it at this point. Even if things get better between now and February, which I'm sure the league is hoping on, but I know there's a lot of financial ramifications. And if it does happen, it's going to be because of that. You've got a new TV deal, all that stuff, all the sponsorships, Vegas, big deal, but it can wait till next year. AHL already postponed their All-Star weekend that was going to happen at the same time. So yeah, just make the call. Speaking of things that were canceled, there was some controversy that the IIHF canceled a whole bunch of their tournament games for January, including for the second straight year, the under-18 Women's World Championships. They didn't postpone it. They flat out canceled it. 2 years in a row, this tournament has bitten the dust. Do you think this was the right call, or do you think they should have postponed it and try to play it again in a couple of months? Sean?
Yeah, I'll flip the question a little bit and say that not only should they have called it a postponement, but if they were going to go that route, they should have also postponed the men's side.
Yep, agreed. Gail?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. 2 years in a row, like somebody said, that's 2 class years for them. It just makes me angry, and it's all about money, so it just stinks for the women.
Yeah, Brooke?
Yes, completely agree. I think it's totally unfair to the women at this point.
Yeah, I am on board. Same way. It's unfair. These players, these women have worked just as hard as the men playing right now. And the biggest difference is the men's World Junior brings in money. And if the U18 Women's World Championship had the TV deal and we're selling out the Rogers Place they'd be playing too. You'd know it. So
Yeah.
let the women regroup and come back in March or April. There's no reason why they can't do it. Make it happen. Do the right thing. It's sad and infuriating. And we'll end with a prediction of the World Junior Championship. We've got a couple weeks before we know this, but real quick, who do you have winning the gold medal at the World Junior? I'm not even going to ask you, Sean. We know your answer. Gail.
Go ahead, Sean. What?
Well, I just want to point when you guys are answering. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Whatever. I can't believe I gave him the floor for that. Okay, Team USA 2 years in a row. Team USA. Woohoo!
Brooke, who's your gold medal?
Heck yeah, Team USA.
Sean, we know you're going with Canada. That's a rule up there, right? As soon as you start writing about hockey, you're not allowed to ever pick against Team Canada. Is that true?
Before I could even write, I was not allowed to pick for anybody other than Team Canada.
Yeah. I am going to be the only person here that's not picking our home country. I picked on our last episode of Prospects Corner, which you could check out over on the YouTube channel. I picked Sweden to win the gold medal, and they made me look like I might know what I'm talking about with their first win over Russia. They handled them pretty well. They got a stacked team. They've got, I think, the best goaltender, one of the best forwards, one of the best defensemen. So if they live up to what they can do on paper on the ice, they'll be a tough out. So they'll be fun to watch. So obviously, World Juniors, keep on watching that. Keep watching those Blackhawks prospects. Keep watching Blackhawks Banter every week on YouTube. That's going to wrap up the 58th episode. We'll be back next Monday. Whether there's games or not, COVID is not going to cancel a Banter episode. I can guarantee you that. We'll make it happen no matter what. So thanks again to Brooke, Gail, and Sean for joining me this week. Most importantly, thank you all for either watching, listening, wherever you consume this show. We are grateful that you do, and we will be back next week to bring you another episode. Everybody have a very safe and healthy new year, and we'll see you guys in 2022.